beasts and their men stole the scents from our heads and bound humans in their souls. By divine powers, our souls are ours. Whatever we want, we'll know. Stay strong, all souls. Come and seek truth with me. Stay strong, all survivors. Knowledge will set us free.
Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of The Good, of the Bad, and the Bible. One of the few shows that takes the actions of what happens in the Bible and straight up asks, is this really moral? Straight up at face value. We don't really cut corners. We don't dive super deep into the meaning a lot of the time, sometimes, occasionally, but for the most part, we take it at face English value, what we get, what we, the common folk, are left to deal with and try and figure out of what it means. So we question the things that happen, that the heroes do, or that the villains do. We try and figure out who's in the right. Is it God? Is it the person God's telling what to do? Is it the person that God and his person are against? And if you're new on the show and you're not super familiar with the Bible, well, let me tell you, you never know when the God in this Bible is going to come through. And today, have we got a fun story. It's actually a little... I said in my previous episodes in these that I was going to try and cut it down to like just one story, but there's like... It's really hard with this in particular story that I've got because it kind of like trails into three. But I'm going to keep them all three short. They're all very connected and very back to back. And they happen over the course of just 2 chapters in Numbers 16 and 17. And it's... God goes off his rocker again. So, without further... But he does it a whole nother way and then has a fun little twist right at the end. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the story. So, the people of Israel are in the desert, making their way through, and they have another issue of murmuring against Moses. People are becoming dissatisfied with his leadership. Not a lot of detail has gone into what their issues are, but their main concern is saying that Moses and Aaron take way too much responsibility on themselves. Him and Aaron and their sons. And there was a particular guy that was in charge. His name was Korah. And him and 250 other guys who it specifically states were renowned and famous and princes, even, within Israel. So very, highly respected, wealthy, well-off people saying this about Moses and Aaron. and they were, and initially the way it's worded when you start reading the story, it makes it sound like they're concerned for Aaron and Moses. But the more you follow through with the story, you start to see that they were actually more interested in having some of that power for themselves, which kind of makes sense because people can become that way, and interesting how people with power tend to crave more of it. And a lot of these people were already in positions of power. Now, could it be that these guys were, it states specifically men of renown? To me that's like respect. These aren't just wealthy people. These are people who are respected among Israel. People look up to these individuals. They're not just wealthy, they are leaders. They are looked up to. And they are challenging. They are having issues with Moses and Aaron. And thinking and kind of acting like, well, maybe God is being more open with letting people lead than you're actually letting on, and you're just hogging all the influence and everything to yourselves. It's just the two of you, like, but if you think about it from a more logical perspective, think about from today's perspective, countries tend to be run by multiple people, not just one or two, but like a whole massive group of them. Yeah, you might have a president or someone who represents the country as a whole and makes some of the bigger decisions, but like in a lot of the modern countries, at least like in the US and like in the UK, they have, like, I'm more familiar with the US, so we'll stick with that, but like, the Congress and, the Senate, I don't know all the names for them all, but you get what I mean. There's many different groups involved in leading the entire nation. And maybe that was the real concern behind these people coming up to Moses. But this is how it comes out in the transcript that we got. So we just got to go with that. I bring these angles up because, history books are written by the winners. That doesn't mean that's exactly how it went down. A lot of the times, nations that win like to make themselves look a little bit better than they actually were. So it's something to keep in mind. And the main reason behind that they're sticking with, because like I said, they don't go into a whole lot of detail, but the main reason they stick with is their concern and the attitude they portray in the writing that these men say that you're taking too much burden on yourself. Share the load. Let me help you out with that. Let me help control some of that power with you. And so God comes to Moses and says, all right. Well, hold on. Right before he does that, he has a reaction to this little murmuring against Moses. And boy, if you've watched any of the other episodes, you're just not gonna guess how God reacted. You think it was peaceful? Do you think it was friendly? Do you think it was merciful or kind or understanding? No. He straight up tells Moses in verse 21. Well, 20. The Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, Separate yourselves from among this congregation. He like like he's not just sticking with the 250 people. He's going with the whole congregation of Israel. He says, "Separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." God is already there. He has gone from 0 to beyond 100. He's not just going to annihilate them. He's going to annihilate them in a moment. It is not going to take him long to wipe the slate clean. And they both prayed to God and, begged, they had to plead with God to not wipe out the entire nation on behalf of just these 250 guys. And God says, fine, all right. Here's what we'll do. We'll have everyone that wants to, replace Aaron and Moses separate, and then we'll have a little talk with them. And so they do this, and so everyone that wants to, stand up against Moses, everyone's gathered, including the nation of Israel. They're all there to watch, and Korah and his homies, his 249 homies, I guess, are there with their families and everything they own together. And Moses comes up to them and says, all right, this is how you'll know if the Lord has chosen you to be part of, his leadership. And that is, if he's chosen you, then you will die a natural long life. Goes through this whole little spiel. These men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord hath not sent me. But, verse 30, if the Lord makes a new thing happen, and the earth opens her mouth and happens to swallow them up and everything that is owned by them, they all vanish into the earth, then you will understand that these men pissed off God. This is God's solution to rebellion. Not talking it out, not trying to explain things, no other kind of punishment. Straight up, this is, yeah, you could say, well, it's just Moses saying that, right? Well, Moses is the spokesman of God. And you know what happened right after that? No sooner had he been done saying all that stuff, literally, the earth opens up like a freaking earthquake and literally consumes everyone. Everyone falls in, all 250 people. And in addition, everyone, their families, everything they owned, all into the earth. Into a bottomless pit, apparently, of some kind of crater that opened up and was big enough and deep enough to where they couldn't see the bottom, apparently. They just called it the pit. The earth just opened up and... Now, in addition to this, not only did they get swallowed up by the earth, but before they had started off, I'm not exactly sure why, but God had decided to order all 250 of these guys to have an incense. Then they would all offer incense to God, or I think it was their idea to do it, but they all went to like offer incense to God, and God was supposedly supposed to also show through that who he was going to choose to serve him. Well, in the midst of the earth opening up and swallowing all these people, all 250 of these guys with their incense things all suddenly catch fire and are falling down into the pit, into the earth on fire. It says that the fire from the Lord consumed them. It doesn't say that it came from the incense, but it was specifically the 250 men that offered the incense. Like it's like they specifically all caught on fire, apparently, somehow, magically. The fire of the Lord. Okay. So it wasn't just execution, but it was a fiery. It's like you're not just being. It would be like, you know, yeah. Not only you get it like not only you get killed for challenging authority, you're gonna get pushed off a ledge. But right before you do, you get doused in gasoline and set on fire, and then pushed off the edge so you can fall while burning. Like, that is a really, really, really harsh and, if I dare say, quite mob boss type of method to kill someone who challenges you. You gonna cross my authority? Alright, Tony, tie this fucker up. I want you to douse him in gasoline. We're gonna light his ass on fire, and then we're gonna kick him off the top of the Empire State Building. See how he likes that. See how you challenge my authority, you challenge my boys. Like, what my boss wouldn't do that to make a point. And so, now, you would think this crazy event would strike fear into the hearts of the Israelites. I mean, sure, he's a tyrannical god and all, who acts a lot like a freaking gang leader, tyrant, but all this supernatural power, certainly you would want to, obey and please and not cross, much less further rebel against, right? You would think, but that's where the next little story comes in. Well, for some weird ass reason, maybe it wasn't as supernatural of an event as what's written in the story to strike as much fear as you would think would be struck into people if they'd seen something supernatural like that. So maybe it wasn't, maybe people were caught on fire, but maybe the earth didn't quite open up quite as supernaturally as what was explained. I don't know. But for some reason, the very next day, the Israelites decide, no, we liked those guys that died yesterday. Fuck Moses and Aaron. That's literally. They got up and they started murmuring against Moses and Aaron. Literally, the whole nation. And and God had it. He was like, all right, that does it. I'm pissed. Aaron, Moses, get the fuck out. It's literally almost the exact same verse as in, what was the previous chapter? No, it's all, that's, damn, it's a long ass chapter. But no, it's the same chapter. He says the exact same line that he says earlier when he was going to say before. But yeah, he says it again. Moses, Aaron, separate yourselves from this nation because I'm going to wipe them out in a moment. Maybe he meant not right away. Maybe that's what he meant. In a moment. Because for some reason he doesn't wipe them out instantaneously. And Moses, for some reason, acts like there's time. Like God isn't going to strike them all down immediately. And he seems to magically know what to do to appease God and save the Israelites. I'm just going to read this to you and like listen to how this is written. It's almost like a movie. Like a movie is being played out here. And Moses said unto Aaron, Aaron, take a censer and put fire therein from off the altar, and put on incense, and go quickly unto the congregation, and make an atonement for them. For there is wrath gone out from the Lord. The plague is begun. That's literally what it says. The plague is begun. And Aaron took as Moses commanded, and ran into the midst of the congregation. And behold, the plague was begun among the people. I don't know what kind of plague. They didn't say. But it says, and he put on the incense and made an atonement for the people. Whatever that meant. I don't know if that involved killing a goat or a sheep right there in the middle of people dying and everything, but it says that he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stayed. So it somehow worked. God had his fill of killing people just enough to where when Aaron killed whatever sheep or goat or did the doohickey dance after putting on the incense, that was just enough to make God happen and be like, okay, I'm going to stop killing people. I'm good now. I'm good. I'm back to being your savior and not your murderer. Guess how many people died? Yeah. 14,700. In addition to the people that died involving Korah. So if you kind of think of it as all one big rebellion, it's roughly literally almost 15,000 people. And then God comes up with a magical solution to put an end to this. God comes to Aaron and he says, okay, you know what? All right, hold on. All right, let's have people stop getting angry for whatever reason and not being able to swallow my magical murdering power and submitting to it. Maybe a nice trick will appease them. And so what he says to Moses, I want you to get a rod from all the leaders of the different tribes of Israel. One including for Aaron, because he is also technically, I guess, the leader of the Levites, in addition to being the high priest. Even though I don't recall ever seeing that anywhere, but that's how it is here. Or maybe it was 12 and his was like a 13th, perhaps. I don't know. but his was there among the entirety of the 12. And God says, whoever I decide to, or Moses tells them that like they take all the staves, the walking staves that they used to walk around with when they're traveling, and they basically put them in a box overnight, or like in the temple somewhere. And I said, all right, whoever's staff blossoms on it, has flowers growing on it in the morning, those will be the people that God wants to lead. And then the next morning, they get the staves out, and lo and behold, Aaron's not only has blossoms of flowers growing on it, but also freaking almonds growing out of it. Because God just can't help but go above and beyond what he needs. He's a real overachiever when it comes to showing off. And that is supposedly his way of like, and like it was his way of like saying, all right, so like there you go, I've shown you. Or like, all right, no more murmuring, guys, please. Like, is this good enough? And supposedly, for the immediate time being, anyways, it is enough. And this is what happens literally right at the end of this whole debacle. And so, which is where I'm going to end with, but why do we end with it? And what I want to point out specifically is, God is supposed to be this all-knowing, merciful, wise being. And his initial response to rebellion right out the gate wasn't to do this little magic flower ordeal with almonds and pretty shit. No, his first reaction was, I'm gonna kill everyone. I'm sick of them rebelling against me. I'm going to kill everyone. Yay! And Moses and Aaron have to calm him down to only killing 250 people, as well as their relatives and people that were with them in their houses and groups and such. So we don't know the exact number. And then they rebel again. What is God's reaction? I'm going to kill them all. And Moses and Aaron literally have to save the day. They have to save the children of Israel from God. Like, think about that. God was so mad that two human beings who were sinful, who were not perfect, nowhere near anything like Jesus Christ himself, supposedly, if we're considering how perfect he supposedly was. But they managed to appease God and stop this angry, pissed off God from continuing to murder people with this plague that is apparently killing them quickly. But not so quick as to where Aaron can't go out and burn some incense and do a special ritual. Almost like maybe it wasn't really God that was doing that plague thing, but something that was unleashed. And there was something within the incense and the atonement ritual that stopped the plague. But, I mean, this is giving a lot of credit to Moses and intelligence and knowing how to do stuff and stuff like that. But, I mean, we really like we're learning all the time how smart people were back then. And I mean, if people were really rebelling the next day after supposedly, I mean, like, think about it. Like, you got a guy telling you is like, oh yeah, I worship a god that can make the earth open up and eat people. Like, he did that once. I saw him do it. He did it in front of a whole nation of people too. And then he can summon plagues and stuff because those same people came back in rebellion against me and my bro the next day, and and then God made them sick, and we had to save them from God making them sick. Yeah, we totally didn't make them sick ourselves, and then knew what the antidote was and ran out into the crowd and like healed them and stopped the plague ourselves. We totally, yeah, we totally saved them from something we didn't do ourselves, from them rebelling against us. Wow, this sounds incredibly American, but like with a really religious twist. Like if they blamed, like if they blamed COVID on God. No, fuck it, I'm just gonna. I'm too stoned to get into that. But you see how, you see it. You see, like we have this stuff happening today, where pharmaceutical companies do not make good, like maybe they made better medicine back in the day, but there are ones now that we're discovering that is like they're not doing a good job with their medications and stuff, and then they're like giving you medications to counter the side effects from other medications that you're taking. Like that's a real thing. And so like they're like almost like, why can't you just make something that's natural without the side effects that allows you to stop needing medication, but they make the medication in a way to where you keep needing it. And so what if Aaron and Moses actually created this pandemic themselves amongst the people, and then they had the solution and they went out and they stopped it themselves? That's what I'm like, why couldn't they know how to do that? Like the common people, of course, wouldn't know how to do that. You and I don't know how to make medicine and pills and stuff like that. I mean, we can learn how to make some stuff, some basic stuff, like from off the internet, from like, you know, basic potions and plants and stuff like that. I mean, that's where medicine, advanced medicine, came from. But like, how do we know they didn't have knowledge of poison and knowing how to cause a plague and stop it? How do we know they didn't know how to do that and they were just lying and saying, "Oh, it's God. God caused the plague, not us. No, we were totally not mad at you for rising up against us. That was all God. We saved you. Yeah, we saved you. That's why you need us to keep being your leader, so we can keep God calm. If these other guys lead, he's gonna be mad and kill all of you. So you want us as your leaders. You see where I'm going with this? You see how shady this makes the story, and then after all of that is said and gone, all of that is said and done, now God thinks of, oh, now I'm gonna do a magic flower trick, and that will keep them happy. Like, if you really think, like, if you really thought that that would work, and you're the all-knowing God, like, why couldn't you have started with that before all the killing? Because God had to purge those people? Like, what, he couldn't do something to, like, get rid of them in different, like did he really have to kill 15,000 people over this? Was that really necessary? Maybe you could have just, I don't know, banished them if they didn't want to follow along. I mean, 15,000 out of a whole nation isn't really that many. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of people to die. But for people to rise up and rebel, I mean, it's not a massive part of a nation. I mean, how big is the entire nation? Like, come on, let why not just let these guys go do their own thing? Maybe they want to go be their own nation somewhere else, or go join a different nation. Let them. What's the issue with that? If like, why do we have to resort to murder? Much less and plague. Like, okay, initially, right out the gate, throwing them in a pit for who knows how long of a drop, while them being on fire. That's really, really cruel. And then and then God goes with the plague, which who knows how long that takes, but they're probably not dying in a flash, maybe. I mean, maybe they were, I don't know, but it was obviously like moving in a wave of some kind. But like, who wants to die by any kind of plague? Like, oh, does that sound pleasant? No, no one wants to die by a freaking plague. That's miserable. No matter what kind of plague you choose, no one wants to die that way. Why would God want to choose that? Like, why couldn't God just do like magical lethal injection, or just make their heart stop? All the specific people that were pissing him off just all drop dead right where they were during whatever they were doing, and leave everyone else the fuck alone. Like, what's so hard about that for God to do that? God can do anything, right? So why can't he just be that meticulously accurate? If he's so meticulously accurate with creation and all that shit. Because the God of the Bible might not be the actual, and this is just my personal take on it, just might not be the being that actually runs everything. If it were one being, I wouldn't think it would have a name. I wouldn't think it would lower itself to that much. And plus, the further dive you dive into the original recordings, you find out this guy wasn't originally even by himself. There were other gods he was in a ring with that were on his level, that information was removed from here, which I've talked about in other passages, but I'm getting off on a rabbit trail. So there you have it. God starting off with murder for his responses and ending with a happy magic trick that could have saved roughly 15,000. Really? 1,000? Yeah. That's 14,700. They really spell it out. Yeah. And the 250 princes and some, and then their families that were not counted in numbers, their wives and their children and their servants that all went in with all their stuff in their houses and stuff into the earth. 15,000 people down the drain because God doesn't know how to handle rebellion. He's a pretty flower. Will that make you not rebel against me anymore? Because the way those 1,500 people died totally wasn't a hoax of some kind. Who knows? But hopefully I've made you question, rethink how you look at the Bible in the future. And other holy books and such. Bible is written by a man. Well, many men. But, you know, a man is a man is a man is a man. Is a woman is a woman is a woman is a woman. We're all human beings. We're all like. You're gonna. People really pretend every single word is perfect and spot on and the best form of logic to follow. Hopefully, after today, if you were one of those persons, hopefully you have rethought your position a bit. And we shall wrap up the video now. Because I have one final thing to say before we wrap up. And that is Happy Thanksgiving, which is next week. I will be taking that week off, but come back for the next video because I've had another religious trauma syndrome theme come to mind. And so what we'll be talking about with that from the RTS perspective will be depression and some of the ways that I have had to deal with it in my own life, how I've learned to win the war on it, as well as in addition, the different ways I've learned to keep on winning the battles. And so if you have issues with depression, definitely or you know someone else who does, share this channel with them because that video will be coming out next. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me what you thought of the story and everything. It's actually funny, the story of Korah and the flower blossoming rods and everything. Those two stories are, I've heard preached more often than you would think in churches, but I've literally never heard a sermon include all three of these stories back to back or address like a seriously good addressed reason why God couldn't have been more merciful, more sparing, more kind, and started off with the blossoming and gone with a less tantrum-like I almost want to say far left-wing like response, like exterminate, they don't belong, they resisted, they questioned, they must be destroyed. So extreme, so childish, insane. It's such an insanely childish act on God's part to react that way. Wow, it blows my mind to read the Bible and these stories again and again every time, because it's like God just doesn't change the vibe, really. He is a cantankerous, mean-spirited dude. Man. But that is it. Leave a like, comment, share. If you would, I would appreciate it. And I will see you next time. So until then, my friends, stay safe and farewell.